Okay, so today's lecture is going to be a little special. It's lecture number 14, but it's actually not game number 14 from Invincible. And the reason for that is that this game that we're going to be going over today, right, Ukasis has got it. This is the game that is played right before the ear reddening game. And in the book, it's only given as Kifu. There's no commentary or anything. So that means that all the brilliant commentary is going to be coming from me. Uh, so just be forewarned about that. But I think it's a pretty fun game and there's some cool stuff in it. So still does the job. Yeah. So next week will be the ear reddening game. I wanted to give a little bit of the backstory for this though. At this point, Shusaku is still 15 years old. Yeah, exactly. Um, He's 15 years old. He's been given the rank of 4 Dan so far, and I guess he left Edo and traveled to Osaka. And so Gennan Inseki was the strongest ranked player at the time. You'll notice that he's got an 8 Dan here. I don't think anyone else to this point has had higher than 7 Dan. He was essentially going to become the Meijin, but he kind of got thwarted a couple times by the Honimbo school. So he unfortunately was never actually able to make it to be Meijin, but Honimbo Jowa felt that he was of Meijin strength anyways, and that's why Shusaku is taking 2 stones. White is a really, really strong player, but when Shusaku arrived in Osaka, he played against Nakagawa Junsetsu, 4 games, which he won all of them. Um, and Junsetsu was Gennan Inseki's disciple, so maybe he's the one that set this matchup between them. And so first they start on 2 stones, and this is the game. So let's take a look at it. I think it's a pretty fun game. White starts off in the open corner. Black takes the other one. White approaches, and Shusaku decided to play the most severe pincer here. This was really common at the time. I wonder maybe he wants to prove, nobody can give me 2 stones at my current strength. So maybe he just wants to get the game started off real quick and get into fighting. Now White plays an interesting move. He doesn't choose to just play a Joseki in this area because he's got a handicap, right? He plays here on the right side, which doesn't seem like it really helps the P3 stone. It does have some relationship with it, though. So let's take a look at what that might be. Assuming black gets this, that's going to create a wall towards the right side, right? And this A stone can still live underneath. And if you have a stone at B, then you're negating the wall pretty effectively. So that's his idea here. Of course, black is going to do this anyway, and get a nice 3-on-1 situation here. And now, what's the next move for white down here in the corner? O4? No, that's probably the worst move. Uh, Generally not good to do O4. Q4, yeah. Q4 is the strongest move, and that's what he plays. This depends on some ladders, though. Let me click black's move. Let's take a look here. So first, white has to have this ladder in order to play the wedge. Bell says would be bad for black in a sense. Yeah, I think I know the sense you're talking about. I mean, if white's going to live, not this one? Well, yeah, not this one. You're talking about from here, right? Yeah, I think Mr. Yang agrees. I've had something like this against him, and the problem is, how do you use the wall, right? And still can't kill it. No? Using 3 stones to fight against 1. Black has spent. Right, exactly. Yeah. Um, it's an interesting, yeah, exactly. It's an interesting position, I think. So sometimes in pro games, they won't play this sort of thing, right? They might choose something else. Not this exact position, but similar things with the 4-4. They won't actually play this if the wall's not going to work out. So yeah, that is definitely interesting. This is the first ladder that white needs to have for the wedge, and then there's another one which normally you always have, which is this one. So since white has both of them, he can play the wedge. And that's important because it's going to leave weaknesses in black's shape, right? Let's play a few moves here. Now we can see that black has some weaknesses. Now my understanding is that white could still live like this, even if he doesn't have the ladder. But the problem is black's not going to have the weaknesses, right? So that's a big difference. So he gets to put the weaknesses in black shape. Does anyone know black's next move here? Kind of an interesting shape. Right, S5. Now, why is that? Black is threatening to play A, which would essentially kill the corners. So white has to answer. And now the nice thing is that black doesn't have to worry about a cut at A. Whereas if you play this, which might seem like a more normal move, after white answers, A is really a big problem. So that's kind of a cool shape there. I'll also mention that white can actually live in Sente here by playing Atari and then doing something like this, but this is, oops, not there. This is pretty bad style, right? To give black the capture in Sente and be forced so poorly. Good, that's another good point. This Atari removes the peep. Good point, Bell. So white's not going to do that. He just plays nice and normal. And what do we want to do now as black? Probably try to use our wall. Yeah. So Shusaku goes all the way here, which is good. And white plays kind of an interesting move. He plays here. This could end up being a complicated sort of thing, right? But he has possibility to connect underneath. He has possibility to try to pincer the Q16 stone. And now Shusaku plays a really interesting move here, which I probably still don't fully understand, but I can sort of appreciate it. Anyone have any guesses? I would be kind of surprised if anyone got it. Or maybe it's just a blind spot of mine. Q11, no. It's really strange in my opinion. I'm actually, I don't know. I'll be interested to see what you have to say about it, Bell. He plays here, which I've reviewed this game a couple times, and every time I see this move, I think, oh, wow. And so, yeah, I know. How are you supposed to guess that? The main thing I see is that black has like these weaknesses. And so, like, what I understand is that he's just trying to get rid of that. Um, but I don't know. It's still kind of a strange move to me. Pretty interesting. Yeah, trying to get rid of it, also putting more pressure on A, also growing the bottom. It's a really interesting move. It's a creative move, like a move you wouldn't expect. Um, Now white says, okay, that's fine. I'm going to try and gain some speed here. I'll attack your cornerstone. Black comes out by touching white. And white says, okay, if you're going to do that, I'll just take the points. And now this is kind of interesting because we get into the same sort of situation as we did in the bottom right. Black plays this sort of shape again. It's a little different now because we're up on the third line, not the second line. But if he just extends that cut with the B stone nearby, that seems like looking for trouble, right? So this is very similar to S5, I think. SW stronger. What does that mean? Just not 2 stones stronger. Oh, I don't know. You can decide from the result of this game, I guess. Black plays Hane at the head of 2. That seems like a good idea. Yeah, the only reason I give you an answer like that is because I don't want to spoil the result. Um, Shusaku actually played 5 games with Gennan Inseki, and um, he was kind of famous already. Like, people saw that he had a lot of potential because he was playing against really strong players like Seven Dons and doing well. But his games against Gennan Inseki are actually what kind of catapulted his, popularity. So you can kind of guess from that what the result's going to be. But they play 5 games, and I think we're going to be taking a look at most of them. White plays a cut here, which seems like a pretty strong move. Because it might make use of this A stone, right? And there's a peep at B. So interesting stuff going on the outside. Black extends. And what's the proper shape for white here? Basic shape thing. Good. We don't want to make an empty triangle, so we jump. This one is still Sente though, right? Because now black could cut it in at P17. Don't want P18 either. Yeah, good point. Because that gives this move. So here's Sente. Now white plays here. That's important because it's taking a liberty away from black. Black's 3 stones. We want to make sure the liberties are tight, but it does leave some Aji at A that we have to worry about also. Black helps his 3 stones. And so there's a peep here, but the B stone's not that strong yet, so we can't really get a surround off. White plays here. Now the question is, should we be helping the A stones or should we be helping the B stones? Right, the B stones. It actually looks like white played towards the A stones, but he wants to attack the B stones. So Shusaku helps the B stones. Let's take a look at why that is. First of all, actually I need to click the next move. First of all, if white plays here, it's okay. We can just back off. There's no real cut, which means that actually, let's go back to this picture. The A stones are already out. The B stones are about to be surrounded. So let's say I play something to help those guys, even if it's here. Now we have peep, and suddenly we're getting surrounded, right? This could be pretty nasty. So don't want that. So helps the B stones. White plays this nice bamboo stealing tessage, right? If this was a black stone, that would be the bamboo point or the bamboo joint. So that's threatening to wedge in and cut at A. Black's going to fix that. Also puts pressure on white's two cutting stones. So white has to help those guys. He has to push from behind. Now here it's kind of like an interesting concept, or I think it's a proverb as well. The main move for black here is A, but since white is putting pressure on these stones, it's a good time to get this in, because white is not going to let us kill those 4 stones, right? So he gets that in Insente, and then he answers. Later on, depending on what happens, maybe white won't have to answer like that. Yeah, it's kind of like a force before fixing. I don't remember the exact wording of the proverb, but yeah, it's generally good to get your forcing moves in before answering. Not always, but yeah, good heuristic. White keeps pushing from behind in order to try and help these stones. A can be somewhat of a target if white gets strong enough over here. Yeah, it is like a Kikashi. So yeah, AB Kikashi before responding. Black thinks he's strong enough, so he jumps ahead in this case. I don't see why white can't descend to 019. Like here? I think he can, right? But isn't that going to make moves like A Sente or P19? Yeah, this is actually a good question. Now I'm wishing I thought about this ahead of time. Um, I'm not sure. Yeah, that's interesting. So white responds like this. Easy question. What do you think, Bell? Now N19 is Sente. Okay, that's what I thought. Oh, like for the endgame and also for Aji. Okay, interesting. Who brought that up? For TC. Yeah, that's a good point though. White had, a variety of choices he could make here. So even more reason to get him, figure out how he's going to answer it now. Um, White kind of asks a question here too. How are you going to answer this? We don't want to play the ugly move, right? So what's the proper response here? L17? Not quite. Right, L18. So with this, you're going to get an empty triangle, right? And nasty endgame stuff. With this, you still have an empty triangle there. So the jump seems to be the best shape in this case. Okay, so white does all of that. And now back to here, right? We got our A stone strong enough. So now we're going to help our B stones, also put pressure on black's group. Black's got to help us out here. And now white peeps. Notice the timing of this peep. Right now would be a little too early, right? Because the A stone has so few liberties, black might be able to try and fight back. So he waits until black can't do an Atari or anything like that, and then gets this, which is an example of good timing. Okay, so white helps himself out over here. Clearly there's still Aji in this A stone. And now black kind of follows up his P18 idea. He wants to see how are you going to deal with your corner group here. This is kind of interesting. So white makes a bunch of forcing exchanges. You like his picture? Yeah. They had Studio Ghibli back then too. Sente, sente, sente. Then he probes here. You can really kind of get a sense for how strong of a player he was. I don't know. Style feels nice. Using all his forcing moves at good timings. Black's going to want to answer this, right? So he does all of that. Um, and then he comes back and fixes here. Um, there's a lot of nasty stuff over here if black doesn't answer. Um, let's take a look at some variations. First, this isn't going to work at all because that's just going to die. But like this might be a little more complicated. Now remember, this is just, the variations that I sort of looked at. So not necessarily correct, but it seemed like this would get really complicated. We get to this point and white isn't fast enough to actually try and kill black yet. But I think this clamp works based on what I was looking at. So let's see. If we want to try and save our 2 stones, then these guys are going to get swallowed up. So there's really a ton of Aji. So of course it's reasonable for black just to answer that. And maybe this stone will be useful for white somehow, right? Like there's a peep at B, so maybe we could peep at B and then jump out to C. So there's a lot of Aji in black as well. It's not one of the officially commented games, Griffin. It is like our 14th lecture, but the 14th game from the book is actually the next one, which is the ear reddening game. Black wants to continue getting sentes here, so he descends. This is one of my favorite parts of the game. And actually, I have to give some credit to Yo-Yo-Ma, who's here. He helped me figure out these variations, not recently, but in the past. Yeah, we looked at this game in the past. You might recognize it later. There's some cool stuff in the corner, and Andy helped me figure it out. So the question is this Sente? Yeah, the book's Invincible, the games of Shusaku. By some miracle, we might make it through all 80. Yeah, this is my favorite part of this game, Belle. There's a lot of cool stuff going on here. White's next move is just, I don't know, I think it's really beautiful. First, let's try and figure out if this is Sente. I guess I have to show White's move. White actually plays here, but let's take a look. It seems like this is the move that Black is aiming at, right? And if White would just capture this, we can connect back, and there's no way that's 2 eyes, so White died. That's not going to work. So what if we try to separate? Yeah, there's S15 is trying to use R11. It's also trying to be Sente against the corner. So here, I think black can play here, right? And now we've got a problem because it seems like A, B, Mii. Like if you stop me from connecting, then I'll go here. And this is a dead shape. So that's tricky. If you capture, I'm just going to go underneath. And that's dead. So, but he didn't answer in the corner, and that's why I think this move is just so cool. And I'll show why in a second here. Um, First, let me click Black's next move. This move, despite being on the outside, actually saves the corner. And that's why I think it's so cool. So if Black tries to do this, it's going to be a little different now. And I I wouldn't have figured this out without Yoyama's help. But now, yeah, Bell's got it. Now White has this. See that? So the A stone actually helps the corner. So cool. Yeah, sugoi. So now we've got Mii. Really cool. But that means that there's a bunch of Aji over there, right? Black might be able to use that Aji later. Yeah, I did, because Eat Ramen wrote it. Sugoi ne. He actually got an extra E in there, though. um, okay, so White is still worried about these stones. He wants to make these good stones, and he's going to try and connect them all the way over to A. Extra E for emphasis? Okay. So he connects here. This is another move that's interesting to me because as black here, I would just respond because it seems like this is Sente, right? Like if white Hane's at B next and I answer at C, then D, it's going to get in a bunch of trouble. Um, Extra E for ruin my Google Translate. That's funny. But he doesn't answer, so I would play B here as black. That's because I played too normal. Uh, Black plays here, so let's try and figure out what's going on here. Um, Again, I need to just click White's move. Let's finish this sequence off. Helium voice, yeah, we're never going to get a lecture where someone doesn't bring that up. This A stone, again, is actually helping the B versus C situation. Let's take a look at it. So if White Hane's here, this is like the problem variation, right? This is the one I'm scared of that I don't want to do. But Black can play here now, and this Markstone is in a pretty nice spot. So if White tries to keep going like this, now you can see the usefulness of this L11 stone, right? The A group is in a bunch of trouble. I'm not exactly sure what Black's next move would be. I looked at some variations, like this one I don't think will work. It looks pretty good, but this move I think makes Mii, like maybe there's a ladder here. And then we can get this crosscut to Suji. A lot of you probably know. A stone would be dead now. Let's see, what just J13. Oh, ha, just take the liberties. H12. Oh, H12. That's a fancy looking move. I was thinking something like this. But you guys can get a picture, right? This did not turn out how White wanted. That group is way too heavy. So L11's cool. It's like another non-local move that actually helps that situation over there. That's why White just plays here anyway. And then Black fixes up, leaving the Aji for later. Heavy means that it's like a burden, right? So it's like a bunch of stones that don't really have a good purpose, and it's not easy to be flexible with them. That's something you should know. Yeah, it's hard to give them up, but it's also hard to save them in an efficient way. Whereas light stones are stones you can use flexibly. You could give some of them up. You don't have to keep all of them. So White plays here. This to me is a really patient move. I would be tempted to play away. Notice how he made this entire thing into a big wall. But that gives Black Sente, and he plays This to me is like a frightening move. I would be really scared if I saw this as white. Um, Suddenly descends here, and we start noticing there's like a peep, there's a cut, there's potentially a weak stone, and then suddenly we remember that our corner is barely alive because of that T16 thing, right? Yeah, Ukasis already has it, right? T14 is Sente. So this is a pretty nasty move. Um, White does his best to try and keep black in and also get rid of like the peep Aji and the cut. Black Hane's gonna try and come out. White's gonna try and keep black surrounded, but now we see, you know, the plan here. This is Sente against the corner, right? Because White's T16 will no longer do anything because black's in the way. So White actually has to give in here and capture in the corner, which lets black continue. He actually gets this double Hane here. And he gets to capture these two stones, which is big. So let's go back and make that clear just in case. So in the corner, White does not have his magic move anymore. So he's just going to die. Oh, wait. Actually, something different here. Does this do anything? Might be slightly more complicated than I expected even. Because this is alive, right? What do you guys think? This looks alive. So what did I miss? S16 earlier. Oh, duh. Sente. Yeah, so you just have to make sure that you get that in. What if T19? T19. Okay, let's try and sort these out one by one. This would be alive because black can't do anything, right? I don't see what black can do at this point. I could just be completely wrong here, but what can black do at this point? I think we have to do Ukasis's exchange first. This looks dead. This one's alive, right? Someone please correct me if I'm wrong, but this one's alive. We have enough liberties. Okay, but like we can't do this right now though, right? We can't take it away because we'll just get crushed here. And we can't do that because we'll just get crushed. So that would be alive. So yeah, it's important. This exchange is Sente, so we would just do that. So that's why white actually has to answer there. Black gets to do this, and white suddenly has to live out here. Luckily, he has a bunch of Sente moves, so he just does it nice and quickly. In one sense, this is painful to live like this, but in another, it's actually pretty efficient to be able to just live with exactly two eyes. And white doesn't want to struggle, so you just make sure he's alive. And black gets rid of the Aji. So everything's pretty much settled for now. And white goes to take another big move. And this could probably work well with his wall. Also, you have to notice that the A group isn't settled yet. Black decides to use a nice loose pincer. The loose pincer is really good for defense. It's not easy to attack because there's a lot of space. Let's see how this goes. Yeah, three spaces is a pincer. because white only has room for a one space extension. Anything that doesn't leave a two space extension is considered a pincer. I don't think they play the loose pincer, the three space pincer on from a 4-4. At least I haven't seen it. But sometimes with 3-4, yeah. I think this one's kind of outdated. At least I haven't seen it in a long time. But white's going to try and use his influence anyway. Yeah, you should know that, Grooviest. Yeah, 1, 2, and 3 space are pincers. White's going to try and use this wall. So here for Tyrannus, this is an example of a light move. Shusaku here has decided to jump 2 spaces rather than 1. He doesn't want to get too heavy. Perhaps this is Sente, right? Black feels an urge to answer on the bottom. And now there's like a clear capping move here. So this is my theory behind why black wants to go a little faster. Probably harder to surround this. So he's trying to play light over here. White knows that this is a hard game for him, so he has to jump in between the A group and the B stone. Otherwise, it's going to be really hard to win this game, right? He can't just let the A group connect because that's black's only weakness. So he jumps in between. And now, I really like Shusaku's play coming up here. Let's see how he handles this situation. First, he plays a forcing move here. How are you going to answer this? White says, I'm going to play strongly. I don't want to give you too many forcing moves. Then black gets to use his Aji from before, right? White says, okay, you're right. I need to connect that. And then black plays here. So suddenly it's like this attack is kind of turned on its head in a sense. This looks a lot tougher for white all of a sudden. But white still has to try and go after that big group. So he plays a splitting move. He really is thinking about this A group. And now black says, okay, let's make these 3 stones heavy. And now he's getting ready to cap here at A. It looks like a natural move. But he says, maybe I can get a little extra help here first. That might make the capping move even stronger. Of course, white has to answer that because otherwise black's just going to connect straight across with B. So he answers, and black plays the cap. This game is getting really difficult, right? These stones are heavy. These stones over here still have problems as well. And white isn't really sure what to do here. And so let's see what he does do, though. He plays this move. I guess I should have mentioned, it was probably obvious, but black does have the connection underneath, right? So as long as the B group has the connection underneath, it's not that big of a deal. So white wants to remove this in Sente because his next move he can drop down at A and kill the 4 stones. And that removes the connection under. But Shusaku says, okay, that's not the most important thing. You can have those 4 stones if you want. And he just answers here. And now you can see there's like cuts over here. 3 stones are totally dying. Really hard to attack the A group. And yeah, white actually, he doesn't resign. White did also. He stopped the game here. He didn't resign. I guess he had the privilege of just stopping the game without resigning. Yeah, he called the game off. Let me go back There was some questions while I was talking. What about N12? How much trouble is it in? Oh, okay. We talked about that. He didn't escape. So here's what the commentary in the book said. Um, he adjourned the game, never to be finished, of course, though, and he actually made the comment that clearly 2 stones is not the right handicap. And so even though it seems kind of like maybe rude, not so good manners, it's actually kind of an honor for Shusaku though, because he let a 4-dan go to black after 1 game. Like that's how much he respected black's strength. He said, "We need to play. You can take black." Um, yeah, so he just adjourned the game. It's kind of funny because I mentioned they played 5 games. In the third game, he did the same thing. He just suspended the game, uh, never to be finished, when it was clear that he was going to lose. So yeah, this is kind of like a little bit of the backstory behind the ear reddening game, which we're going to see on next Saturday. So clearly, 2 stones was just too much for him to give Shusaku. Um, I don't know if it was disgraceful. It seems like since he did it twice, that was just White's privilege to do. I think it was just his privilege, but it's hard to say, right? It's history at this point. Yep, he escaped. Kind of a fun game, though. A lot of interesting stuff. I really liked the stuff on top, and then the corner Aji we saw. I really love this move. This is really cool to be able to save the corner with a move that's not actually in the corner. So hopefully you'll all come back next week for the ear reddening game. I know a lot of you guys have been whining about wanting to see that one since we started this whole thing. Um, and we're almost to the point in the book where we're almost getting to the point that I've stopped in the past. I've attempted to get through this book at least twice before, and we're about 2 games from the spot uh, that I quit last time. More Shusaku losses. Why are you so, Megan? Why are you so obsessed with Shusaku losing? Oh, you're not joking. Just wait until next week and you'll see, Belle. It's arguably the most famous Go game in history. If not the most famous, it's definitely ranks up there as one of the most famous games. Um, and it's a really beautiful game. This one has like 12 pages of commentary, so there's going to be tons of diagrams and stuff to look at. It should be really enjoyable. It's going to be a longer lecture though. Yeah, it's not a castle game. It's just a really famous game. It's a really, really cool game, so make sure to come see it. Set aside 6 hours. It'll probably be around 2 hours, 1.5 to 2 hours. So maybe you guys can suffer through it. I'm going to turn the stream off at this point. Oops.